Hello and welcome back to Mama Juice. I am your host, Sandra, and today we have Lindsay Ford. She's a writer and wrote a book called The Positive Parenting Framework. And you guessed it, we're going to talk about positive parenting. I know this is something I could use, so stay tuned.
Hold up.
Thank you so much, and welcome to Mama Juice.
Thank you.
And so, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your background and your book?
Sure. So Lindsay Ford, and I am a positive parenting coach. And what I do is I help moms and parents interpret what their child is really saying when they act out and work with them to figure out strategies to restore that calm and cooperation back into their home. So I am a mom of two little ones. I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. So I am in the thick of things as well. And I know how challenging it is to have kids. And I really started into positive parenting because of my kids and some of the struggles I was having, getting into the toddler years with my daughter. And I fell in love with the methods I was learning, and I fell in love with teaching and really just connecting with other parents and helping them really have, just understand their kids better and understand what's driving them and their parenting a bit better. And I love having those conversations with parents. And then I just wrote a book, The Positive Parenting Framework. It just came out in October. It became a bestseller on Amazon the first week, which was really exciting. It's a very conversational book. It's meant to be a very approachable parenting book because I feel like there's a lot of parenting books where I've read, I know in my experience I've read in the past that, I kind of read it and go, oh crap, I'm screwing up. Oh, like just, and I didn't want anyone to have that experience. So yes, there's lots of really good information, but parenting is a journey, and we're not meant to be perfect. And it's the imperfections that we need to, work through and really learn from because they're there to teach us something. So parenting is a journey. A little bit about me.
Yes, that's a beautiful message and one that I think everybody needs to hear because we put ourselves in this box of what we expect of ourselves and what we think society expects, and even what we think our kids expect. With break it down, like ask your kid what they expect of you. They're gonna be like, you feed me food,
yeah, feed me food, play with me, depending on the kid, or leave me alone, depending on
exactly. And we have these grand expectations, so I think that's really cool. And the little message that you sent me about what we're going to be talking about when it said tantrums are a good thing, I was like, I gotta know what this is about.
So tantrums, I love talking about because I think from the parents I've talked to anyways, they're one of the most feared behavior issues in the younger years because it's just they can just be really extreme when our child goes all in on either getting what they want or just the massive, emotional outburst, which many of us weren't raised like that was not acceptable behavior. That was shut down pretty quickly. And now to see this in our child, we have all these instincts in us that just say, shut it down now. This is not allowed. This is not acceptable. But really, tantrums are a very normal part of childhood. It's a very normal way for your child to communicate that they are upset with something or they want something or that they're really struggling with their emotions and they don't know how to communicate to us. So I know with the tantrums, they're not something to be feared. It's just our child telling us something. So in some cases, in the case of like more of an emotional meltdown type of tantrum, where our child's maybe been bottling things up all day or for weeks and trying to be that good kid, that great kid at school, that great kid at daycare, doing what they're supposed to do, it comes at an expense almost. Like if they're slightly irritated and they bottle that up, there's only so much space to bottle up feelings before it starts spilling out. And it can either come out as a tantrum and a meltdown through tears, or it will start to come out as being really rigid in what they want. So they might make certain demands like, I want a cookie for breakfast, and they will not take no for an answer, even though you never, ever give them cookies for breakfast. And it is a bit mind-blowing about why they would request something like that. Or they might just like attack siblings or like just be very irritable, because that's all indications of those emotions bubbling out. So sometimes having a massive meltdown is just their way of releasing all that, and then you can go back to having your happy kid again after maybe a couple of meltdowns.
What if your kid is never happy?
Well, do you have an example?
I have many. So I have twin boys who just turned 3 last month. And I swear, since they were born, they have not been happy little people. So they were very colicky, crying a lot as babies. And then, when they started getting a little bit of speech and movement, they're just angry. They're angry kids, I feel. And I often find myself almost on a daily basis saying, do you enjoy anything? Because everything turns into a screaming, a crying, a throwing, something. And I feel like I'm constantly telling them, when I have it in me to be calm,
Yeah.
I tell them, what do you want? Okay, ask me like this. And then I show them how to phrase it properly, because it's like, we're in the van and he drops his toy and it's like, and I'm like, what do you mean? I dropped. Okay, say, Mom, can you get me my car? Perfect. And I'm like, how many years do I have to teach them how to say that? Because my daughter had tantrums, but it was like you were explaining at first, the big ones. Like it was like she'd be okay for days, and then all of a sudden it was an explosion. My boys, I feel like it's almost every interaction I have with them is a screaming match.
And how old are they?
They just turned 3 last month.
Okay. So they're still learning how to communicate. So I think what you're doing by teaching them how to say those words and what to do instead of what they're doing is really great, because they don't know how to say, Mom, I want the car. They just know that the car is on the floor, and that is devastating. And they might have also learned that being angry sometimes works for them. So if they're more demanding, then they're going to get more. My son is very explosive, kind of like you're describing. I wouldn't classify him as like an angry kid, but he's definitely like multiple tantrums daily. He's getting better. He's 4. But for, every morning for, I think when he was the age of 3, he did not want to put his socks on. Like it was just,
and the dress is just,
and he would have those meltdowns and those tantrums because he really wanted me to put the socks on. And I guess knowing what I know, I knew that was his way of saying, I want you to do this for me, Mommy, because I feel more loved when you're doing things for me. And I would rather he's not saying any of that. He's just screaming that he doesn't want his socks on, but it was more of an attention seeking behavior. Than anything, because he wanted, when our kids ask us to do something for them that they're fully capable of doing, that's usually a sign that they want some attention. So sometimes it would be just giving him extra attention. Like I wouldn't necessarily do the socks for him, but I might even just sit with him like, okay, you want my attention, you have my attention, I'm here, now you can put your socks on. Or just continuing to, go about my day, making breakfast, making lunches, those types of things, and just being like, yeah, you really don't want to put your socks on, and you're upset that you need to put your socks on. And then just letting him scream and just kind of validating those feelings, giving him some words to, express what he's feeling, and then just being okay with him struggling through it, because ultimately, those little failures and those little struggles are all building the resilience muscles, right? So, hopefully he's going to learn that it's okay. He's capable of doing things. He's also capable of kind of suffering through things a little bit, and he's going to come out the other side okay.
I like that. You just made me have like a total breakthrough right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, so my daughter, she just turned 5. And, I think anytime a new sibling comes into the picture, it's hard on them. Well, she got 2 new siblings, twins, obviously, right before she turned 2, which is a very vulnerable age.
Yeah.
And probably in the last year, she was always the most independent child. I mean, she started walking at 10 months. The minute she started walking, she's like, I don't need you. For her to now start wanting assistance with small tasks, I'm like, who are you? Like, you know, where's this independent child I know? But now I know that it's because, you know, she's wanting that attention. I still help her brothers with this stuff. Why am I not helping her?
Yeah. And attention isn't something like oftentimes people think, oh, if they want attention, we need to shut that down, that need. But really, she's just saying, I feel more connected and loved when I have your attention. So I'm going to try to get your attention so I feel that connection and love to you. It's not coming from like this ill-intended state. It's just saying like, I'm insecure somehow with how things are going and I want some extra attention to feel, you know, validated and important.
Yeah, they have that need and they don't know how to just say, you know, how they're feeling. So it's just almost instinctual.
Yeah, exactly. And we all have that need for attention, all of us, even as adults.
Wow, very cool. So do you do like one-on-one teaching with parents?
Yeah, I do one-on-one coaching, and then I do teaching through classes on either on Zoom or pre-recorded classes, and then my book is a great synopsis of, you know, my overall teachings.
Wonderful. Okay. So what tips would you give to like a mother like me who feels like, you know, overwhelmed by so many children? You know, it's so funny because when you say like the number 3, it's like, that's not that much. But then when you put it into like 3 and not toddlers anymore, because, you know, my kids are growing out of those ages, but when you put it into like 3 versus 1, it's a lot. And so everybody has their needs and everybody has their emotions. And I've just found that balancing that is so difficult and is almost like it's a constant power struggle between each of them for my attention. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why they feel the need to scream all the time, because everybody's just wanting to be heard and there's only one mom.
Yeah. Well, and I think just recognizing that everyone does have their emotions, and you included, right? Like you have to take care of yourself as much as you're taking care of the kids, or perhaps even more, so you can stay level-headed and stay patient through it all. And I just, you know, so much, I want to emphasize that we have never been parents before, and we have never parented these specific kids in this specific time before. So we are learning, like as our kids are learning to, you know, navigate the world, and they're developing all their communication skills and their problem solving and all of those things, we are also learning all of that at the same time. So we often just expect that we will know how to handle our kids in every situation, and when we don't, it just feels like we are failing, and it's just like we are doing wrong by our kids and we're not good enough and all those things. But we are just learning, we are figuring it out. So as much as we can almost step back, and even if it's after the fact, so say you've just, you know, had a horrible interaction with your kids, and now they're in bed, and afterwards you can just be like, okay, what happened? What is it that I need that, you know, like, why am I out of patience today, or for the last week, or for the last month? What do I need to fill me up? What are my kids telling me with this? Like, what are they? Because it's not that they're not doing it on purpose. Our kids don't want to misbehave and act out and all those things, even though it seems like they're doing it on purpose sometimes. It's not how they want to live. They're telling us something. They're always telling us something. They're doing it for a reason. So figuring out what those reasons are, and then how to adjust our parenting. And oftentimes it's not a massive overhaul that we need. It's just a few little tweaks in what we're doing. So in a case like where they're all competing for your attention, is there an opportunity to have, you know, once a week where you spend 15 minutes one-on-one time with each kid? And it doesn't have to be like on the same day. It could be, you know, over a series of days where, you know, your other 2 kids are with somebody else, and you're just rotating through where you have, you know, one-on-one time, because that one-on-one time then, you know, builds that connection piece. It also gives them that positive attention, so they are less likely to need it later. And usually when I recommend that one-on-one time, that special time together, I say put the child in control of what's going on. So that also fills up their need for power. And that those power struggles tend to lessen. So even something as simple as that could really just make a difference in the whole grand scheme of things.
Okay, that makes sense. And just to backtrack just a little bit, I really like that you said we've never parented these children at these ages. And I love that because I feel like people want everything to have an answer. So at this age, how do I handle this? And the real answer is it's going to be different because every child is different. And I stress this so much all the time. People probably get sick of me saying it, but we look at ourselves as adults, as individuals, but we look at children as a whole. And we want to treat them all like children. That's it. They're just this category of children. And there is just one right way and one wrong way to do it. But they are individuals and they're going to be different. They're going to handle every situation so different. And so I really like that you said that because I feel like a lot of times parents do get overwhelmed because somebody, an expert, a coach, a book will tell them, this is how you handle this child at this age. It doesn't work because their child doesn't respond to that.
Yeah, and they're all these unique beings, and what worked at 3 for your daughter might not work for your one son, which might not work for your other son, because they're all different and they're all seeing the world from a slightly different perspective. So you're going to have a different relationship with each. And oftentimes, we kind of look at, parents who are how can they raise 2 such different kids? Well, because they're different, they are different individually, and as a result of that, you're going to have slightly different relationships with each, and you're going to actually, as much as we try to do the same by our kids, we're actually parenting them all slightly differently depending on their personalities and how they're interacting with us.
Yes, and I think actually a mistake that I shouldn't say mistake, but something that people do that they don't realize is they do try to parent all their kids the same, especially the younger ones. So this worked for my first child. It's going to work for my second child. It's going to work for my third child, and so on. And so when it doesn't, they put the blame on that child because it worked before. Why is it not working now? And I think that's where you get those kids that grow up to be adults. And maybe one child has a set of issues that the other child doesn't, and it might just be because they didn't get what they needed. And again, not to put blame on parents, we're all doing our best, and none of us are perfect. We're all going to mess up somewhere, but that may help parents. Man, you're just blowing my mind right now. I'm going to be honest, because just talking to you, like so much stuff, right? Now I have chills because so much stuff is making sense. Awesome. In a way that it should, and in a way that's so relatable. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I just want to add a point to what you were just saying, is likely there's going to be one of our kids or 2 of our kids that are easier for us than the other one because of who we are, and they might just align nicer with our expectations, or they might bring out less of our insecurities versus one of them always is pushing our buttons and making us just feel like horrible people. So that also factors into everything.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So a question I got recently was, how do they implement a lot of this stuff as a single parent? Because they personally feel like the books and the coaches and the teachings are really geared towards a 2-parent household.
Mm-hmm. So I think there's always, in every book, in every approach, in every expert, there are nuggets of wisdom that you can take and apply. So it's not, I don't believe in a one size fits all. Even like if you read my book, you might take like 2 or 3 things from it, and some of the stuff you just be like, I don't like that. But I really believe that there are pieces that we can pull out and put into our own lives. So again, if you're single and you're not resonating with some of that stuff, put it aside. If it's making you feel bad, you can either put it aside, or you can turn inward and really start to ask yourself, like, what is this bringing up in me? Because it could be just like the defenses going up of like maybe feeling criticized or judged for their particular situation. And you know, you could get that reading a book as an example, but it's often bringing up something in you, and just taking and taking the nuggets out. And I'm a big fan of if you're trying to change something in your parenting, doing that reflection, and you know, writing down what changes you want to make, or coming up with a plan. So if you're dealing with something that is a repetitive behavior, as an example, you find yourself, you know, always either overwhelmed when it happened, unsure of what to do, or slipping into punishment or parenting in a way that you don't want to, write down a plan for the next time that happens. Because if it's something reoccurring, you know it's going to happen again. And now you can actually put pen to paper and say, okay, next time this happens, I plan to respond with, you know, I'll try this strategy first, and if not this. So it you know, puts you in control. It doesn't trick your brain, because it actually just focuses you on what you can control versus what you can't control, and then just recognizing what it's going to bring up in you. So I think we can do that as single parents, as you know, two-person household, or two parent households. I think you can do that in a variety of situations. So it's just, yeah, taking the nuggets and leaving what doesn't work, reflecting on what makes sense for you, and leaving the rest. And at the end of the day, there's all this advice in the world, but it all comes back to what resonates with you, what makes sense for you based on your intuition and your own internal wisdom, whether you follow that or not.
Yeah, so to kind of add on to what we said earlier, then it's like, okay, we need to not only treat our children like individuals, but ourselves. So if I read something that is not functional in my life, I need to either find a way to make it functional in my life, or move on to something else. That makes total sense. But when that person asked me that, it made sense to me, because I kind of have I won't get into the details, but a unique situation with my kid's dad. And so I am their main caregiver. And so even like when you said, you know, 15 minutes for one child, this anxiety came over. I'm like, where am I going to find these 15 minutes? Yeah. And I think a lot of, we work off anxiety, we work off of fear, you know, and I literally, as you were talking and I'm trying to process what you're saying, I'm also imagining my kids with my mom, my other two, and them screaming and crying and wanting to be with me, because that's how things go. And so now there's this escalated situation where this child's getting the attention that they need, whereas now I'm coming in and saying, like, you need to stop screaming. And now I'm kind of
so
this child.
Yeah, and so you might not be able to do those 15 minutes and essentially block off that, you know, 45 minutes, an hour plus of time all in one go. Call all your kids together and say, hey, I want to try this. And I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, and I'm going to play with, you know, like this child first, and your other two, maybe they can sit on a tablet or just watch TV or something like that, or whatever it is, or they play together, and then it just rotate. So and it might take, with the ages of your kids, it might take a few times for them to like really, you know, get the hang of it, and you know, saying, okay, no, this is my time, like, don't come over, you're over here, and you just train them. So it's not the pressure of getting it right the first time. It's like, this is something new that we're trying and we're figuring it out. And it's going to take some time to, you know, finesse that, I guess, that pattern, or that, whatever it is, that way to do it. But it's teaching your kids, it's training them how you want them to behave. So maybe maybe it doesn't work the first time you try, but maybe, you know, number 5 or time number 5, it actually, like, you're getting into your groove where this is making sense.
I am so horribly guilty of that, where I try to implement something in hopes that it fixes a problem. And because it doesn't work, the first time's a disaster. I'm like, that's just not going to work. But you're right, you do need to be consistent, and consistency is the key to anything.
Consistency develops the habit, and then the habits are done on autopilot, right? So
Yes.
it's just what's expected. And when we can be consistent, it just makes our lives easier. It's hard to be consistent, though. It is.
Yeah, that's definitely the first challenge, but I'm going to try that. I'm genuinely going to try it and share with everybody how it works. And I feel like it's going to work because kids they like that anticipation of like, oh, there's the timer, it's my turn, you know? So I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to try it for a few weeks.
Yeah. And let me know how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of what I offer, I think the book, The Positive Parenting Framework, which is available on Amazon, that's a really, really great start. And if you go to theparentingframework.com, there's a freebie on tantrums, which we talked about to help you navigate those tough tantrums. So I think those are really excellent places to start, and getting to know me a little bit better, and to see if, you know, what I'm sharing is resonating with you. And even if it's not, I think you'll get maybe even a handful of nuggets out, and that's okay.
Yes, and I think that's important too, is maybe if somebody tries reading a book or they try hiring a coach and that doesn't work, they feel like, oh, that tool is not for me, or that tool is silly and it doesn't work. But I think it's so important when you're trying to find somebody to help you in that area, to make sure that you have a good connection and you guys are on the same page, because if not, it's going to be awkward and it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. And that's like, I have free 15-minute calls, and that's exactly the reason. Like, let's see if we connect and click before we try to do something bigger, where you're spending a lot of money and I'm trying to help you, and the relationship is just, you know, it's not clicking for whatever reason. So those 15-minute calls are like really, really valuable, like gaining that insight of whether or not, you know, it does make sense for us to work together.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for moms to remember, like, if it didn't work out, if it doesn't seem like a good match, it doesn't mean, like, don't give up on trying to find that help, because if you need help, find the help in any capacity that you can, because, you know, I love that old saying, it takes a village. And I mentioned in a previous video that we don't function like that anymore. You know, it used to be like multi-generational homes where everybody raised kids together. And I even feel like I had that growing up. You know, my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother all lived in the same apartment complex. We had distant cousins, there was like our third cousins, that lived in this apartment complex. Nice. And we all, you know, they watched each other's kids and everybody helped each other. And I just feel like my generation down has kind of lost that. And it's sad, but also families are getting smaller. And so it's not as available. And I think people like you bring that to the table. And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I just also want to maybe just say that, you know, in addition to it not really feeling like a village right now, I think there's a lot of self-judgment too when we feel like we need help, and we judge ourselves for needing help, because I think many of us think that parenting should just come naturally, and everyone else is not struggling. And there's so many people struggling silently, and that's just, I don't think there's any harm in asking for help and reaching out, or just and learning, because we've never parented before.
You know, it's so interesting because I had a neighbor that I had kind of developed a friendship with. We were kind of acquaintances. Our daughters were about the same age, and I thought we were going to be really good friends. And then one day she tells me that my social media posts were too negative for her and that it wasn't good for her mental health. Okay. That same week, I had a case manager that I work with tell me that her members are telling her that seeing perfect stories on social media, it's bad for their mental health, because they feel like everybody's doing good when they're struggling. Yeah. And so it's kind of like, you know, like some people, I guess, like to see the negative because it's relatable. Some people don't, because maybe they feel like it adds to their stress. And that's okay. You know, if somebody's personality or what somebody's sharing isn't good for you, then it's okay to disconnect from that person. But I think that for me, I love talking to other parents where they're like, man, like I did not like my kid this morning. I'm like, yeah, I didn't either. It helps me.
It helps because it reinforces the idea that we are not alone and that we're not crazy bad people because we're struggling with our kids. Everybody struggles with their kids. And even with as much as I know, I still struggle with my kids because, I can, if I was coaching you, I could sit back and, look at the situation from an outside perspective. But me as a mom, it is personal and I am in it. So it's a lot harder for me to pull back and be like, okay, this is what is happening. It's harder for me to do that in some moments. So it's not that even people like me have it all figured out and we are just a harmonious family all the time. It's just the work is real because our kids just push our buttons and bring up our insecurities. And I have these expectations of how my kids should be and how my life should be and all those things. And my kids completely shatter that on a regular basis. So it's like always this internal work going on. So we're all struggling with being moms.
Yes, it's wild. Like and it's so innocent that sometimes it's funny. So like last night, I'm Mexican, and just genetically, Mexican women seem to have a lot more hair. I mean, it's good for your head, but we have it everywhere mostly. And so I full on, like full disclosure, I shave my face like a man. Not that I have a full beard, but I do. And so my daughter has caught on to that. And last night she was like, is your mustache growing back? And I was like, because growing up, being furry and my mom saying you can't wax your eyebrows until you're 15, and knowing, before that, being aware that it is something that bothered me and was an insecurity. And now here's my 5-year-old like, is your mustache growing back? And I'm just like, why are you doing this to me, you mean girl?
Yeah, but it's so innocent, and they're just like, hey, this is something interesting I'm noticing, and they have no awareness of what insecurities that could bring up. And sometimes things like that might cause us to then react at our kids and scold our kids. But really, they're doing it from this place of innocence, and our feelings actually has nothing to do with them. It's just bringing up a lot of stuff from our past. So
right. And luckily, I laughed it off. Me and my mom was over and we were just laughing about it. But it's those little ways that they can bring up things that they just have no idea is such a struggle in your life. And we just have to, I think another issue in parenting is a lot of people either became parents very young, or like in my situation, I wasn't a mom until I was 27. So I'm like, I had all those years to get myself together and go to counseling and figure out what my own problems are. I didn't. But I think if we protected our own mental health just as people, and we figured out how to work through those issues, when we have kids or as our kids are growing up, if we can do that, those things aren't going to hit us as hard, and it's not going to make those moments as difficult.
Yeah, and it's just that building self-awareness, that knowing it's okay to ask for help and need help from a counselor or somebody else. It's all those pieces of, so much of parenting is about parenting ourselves and what's going on in ourselves as much as it is our kids.
Right, absolutely. Sometimes I feel like my life is karma, because I totally was one of those women that would see a kid throwing a fit in a grocery store and be like, I do not let my kid act like that. And it's like, I don't let them, they just do it. It's not about letting them, it's just about like what they're going to do.
I always like to say my kids like to make liars out of me when I'm just like, my kid will never do that. And then it happens. I'm like, damn it.
Yes, no, they did that. And they did it to like the next level.
And then now you probably have more compassion for other people with when their kids tantruming in a store. So
yes. Now I'm like, can you be good for your mom? Like, I'm that person, and I hope it doesn't ever offend anybody, but I just want to help out, because when a stranger speaks to a child, it does something to them.
Well, yeah, because it kind of shocks them, because they're like,
right.
I don't know you. Totally.
Yeah. So I'm like, can you be nice to your mommy? Your mom seems like a really nice lady. And they're like, Okay.
What is this person saying? Why is she talking to me?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's my empathy, because I love when people tell my kids stuff. I'm like, you tell them. Help me out.
Well, yeah, because especially in that situation, we feel really, pressured, either judged or pressured to get them under control. And so if someone else is just like offers some compassion, it just relaxes us inside a bit. Like, just the world needs more compassion.
Yes. And generally speaking, I kind of have this theory where I feel like, yes, there are judgmental people out there. And yes, there are those expectations, but I feel like a lot of it is internal. And I feel like a lot of it is manifested within ourselves, and we project that onto other people. So you might see a look on somebody's face and think that person is totally judging you. And maybe they're not. Maybe they're like crying inside because they know what you're feeling. And they don't know how to approach you and say, do you need help? And I see it so often where I hear a lot about the judgment. I don't see a lot of the judgment, to be honest. And I'm in mom groups, okay? And mom groups are horrible.
Well, and I think it's just, if you're not a person judging others, we tend to think that, people are generally like us. So I found even as I can show more compassion to others, I just assume other people are compassionate about me, whether or not that's true. I don't notice a lot of the judgment either, because I'm just like, I'm just doing my thing, and I'm just assuming that they're feeling bad for me, right, or they understand, or whatever it is.
Yes, and I feel like the judgment I have seen, which I just talked about me doing, is from people who don't have children or have never been in your situation, even if it's not judgment on parenting. A lot of the times it's just somebody who just doesn't understand. And so if you have the opportunity to educate somebody in a really positive way, like absolutely take that opportunity, because that person might have a breakthrough and be like, oh, okay. And then when they later experience it, they're going to be like, I get it.
Yeah. And even just after a situation like that, if you are feeling judged, really putting maybe your curiosity hat on in terms of like, maybe that person was having a rough day. Maybe they were, maybe they've experienced some, I'm thinking of a time I felt really judged when someone biking by my house was like, you need to watch my son was, I think 2 at the time, and he was running not on the road, but by the road. And I was standing way back, and I was, whatever, he wasn't going to go on the road. He's well trained. But he's like, you need to, watch him better. You need to be right by him. And I was just like, I don't think so. But I felt really judged. And then I'm like, well, maybe he's had an experience where like a kid's been hit by a car, or maybe, he was scared riding his bike that he was going to hit him, or maybe like, and once I started putting that more curiosity hat on and like what if scenarios, and I didn't feel judged anymore. I was just like, okay, like, it was all him. It wasn't.
Yes.
And then I asked myself, like, do I feel that he needs to be watched a little bit more? No, and I really didn't feel that, because like he was like 10 feet from the road. I don't know, he wasn't that close, but yeah, that curiosity can sometimes help us when it comes to judgment.
Oh, I love that. And it's just so interesting because we started out talking about our children's insecurities, and now we're talking about ours and even strangers. Like maybe he does have something triggered him. Yeah. It had nothing to do with you. And I think that's so important, is to realize like not everything has to do with you, even if that person is directing it at you. Yeah. And that really helps to flip your mindset.
Yeah. And same with our kids, when they're attacking us with their words, or they're throwing things at us, it often doesn't have to do with us. It's just they're expressing their emotions somehow. So even in that scenario, it's the same. It's all the same.
Awesome. Well, this was so much fun. I really appreciate your time. Do you have any parting words for my viewers? Any helpful last minute tips or anything?
No, I think I just want to reemphasize that we are all learning, and we are learning alongside our kids. So you are not screwing up. You are doing great. And it's about small baby steps and making progress. And it's not about perfection.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I love your message. I love your vibe. It's so wonderful. And I'm going to link your book and your website below, because I want everybody to check it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I love this conversation.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Right.
Wow, that for me was great. It was so helpful. I got so much value, and I literally had like 10 breakthroughs where I was like, oh, that's why my kid's doing that, and this is what I should try. And I'm truly going to implement a lot of what she suggested, and I'm going to keep you guys updated on that. So, guys, if you feel like you too got value from this, please do me a big favor and subscribe. I also want you to share this with every single mother you know that will get value from it, because we need to start functioning more like a unit and like a community, and that's what Mama Juice is all about. I want to see you succeed as much as I want to see myself succeed. So take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time. Oh, don't forget to go to the description, because I really want you guys to follow that to her website and to her book. Bye.